Hi everyone, welcome to week 5, part 2 of data journalism. In this part, we're going to do Datawrapper, datawrapper.de, which is a website that you can use to build graphics and maps in, and some really cool ones as well. We're going to start with basic charts and graphics, and then later in the semester, we're going to do locator maps and choropleth maps as well. What I want you to do is go to week 5 on our syllabus schedule and click on our week 5 schedule. We haven't worked with the schedules so far in class, but we are this week. And then I want you to open that up. So you'll be right here. And then I want you to pause the video and set up a free account at datawrapper.de. Then I want you to open up this data set and download it, which is right in this Google Drive here. You will see Chicago homicides 1990 to 2020. To download that data set, you'll just double click on it and then hit the download button here in the upper right. So you want to download that. And then the third thing is a link that we'll use as our data source. It comes from the City of Chicago's data portal, this crime data. So go ahead and hit pause and do these 3 steps and then start the video back up when you're ready to roll. Okay, welcome back. The data set we're going to take a good look at first, and then we'll get into our graphic making tool. You may notice here it's a very simple data set. It's got a header that says year and then one that says homicides. And this is the annual number of homicides in Chicago for 30 years, 1990 to 2020. And you can see, they were really high in the early 90s. They began to drop in the early 2000s. And then they started going back up again. We saw a significant jump between 2015 and 2016. This was right after the police shot Laquan McDonald. The homicide rate spiked after that and has continued to stay pretty high. It dipped a little bit 2018, 2019, but we had a very high year in 2020 during the pandemic year, which was quite surprising to many people. So, datawrapper.de. This is a tool that's a Dutch tool. Dutch company builds it and runs it. Fantastic resource. It has been around for a number of years and more than a decade. You can build all kinds of different maps, charts, and things like that in it. If you don't want to use your own free account, you can log into mine. The login is on our class Google Drive. And if you go out here, I just don't want to put the password up on the screen because people can see this video outside of class. And go into our account logins page where only you guys can see it. It does give a Datawrapper login there. So if you want to work off my account, that's fine. I do a paid account that has a few bells and whistles on it. But the free accounts have basically everything you'll need. So the Datawrapper interface, once you log into it, you'll see any recent graphics that you've been working on or have made here. And some students were building some maps and things like that. It looks like they had a few practice swings at it as well here. Up here under archive, you can look at your past ones here. You also have this create new button up here, a plus sign. It's a little different. Datawrapper just redesigned it fall of 2021. It used to be all these little tabs sat up here. And it's got 3 things: a chart, which is what we'll work on today, mapping, which we'll get into a little later in the semester, and a table. If you want to put up your data, your spreadsheet, just as a little table setup, you can do so, which is really cool. So go over here and click on chart. And it'll open up an interface for you to upload data. Now, you can do it as a link to a Google Doc as long as it's public. You can connect to a Google Sheet or some other external source. You can copy and paste the data over here. I would advise not doing that. It tends to cause a lot of errors in it. or upload your spreadsheet by clicking on this button. It does have sample data sets down here that you can practice with that are kind of fun, but we've got some Chicago homicide data. We're going to work with that. So click on the upload button here and go to your downloads folder, and you'll find your one Chicago homicides by year, 1990 to 2020. Hit open. And wait a second, because it does take a second for it to load. And everything should appear in green and blue here if all things are kosher. If there was missing data or something was garbled or didn't come through cleanly, you'd see a little red cell there showing that there's an error. And sometimes your data comes through and it's dirty. You can do graphics in multiple languages. I am going to ask that you do English, US. And then your first row, it should default to this. First row is label. Year in homicides up here across the top row. Hit proceed if everything looks kosher here. You can add columns and do some basic editing here, swap out rows and columns, transpose things, if you feel the need to, but most of your data sets that you'll move in here are going to be pretty clean. Hit proceed. And it will take you to this interface where you can choose what type of chart you want to do. It's pretty good at guessing, when it looks at the data set, what might make for a good chart with this data. As you can see here, in the early 1990s, the numbers were high. As you hover over them, you see the year by year. It defaults to January 1, but you can always remove that later. I'll show you all kinds of little tips and tricks here. Numbers were pretty low from 2005 to 2015. They started to drop significantly. Then they skyrocketed again in 2016, began on the downslide again in 2019. We had a new police chief, things like that, and then they began to go back up again during the pandemic. It'll be interesting to see where we wind up in 2021. I'm recording this in mid-December, so I haven't seen 2021 final numbers yet. Two different types of charts would work here, and you can just click around on the different tabs to kind of test them out. One that would work pretty well is a column chart, or the line chart would be okay. I like the column chart because it breaks out each year individually. Doesn't necessarily show continuity like a stock market chart or something like that. I kind of like the bar chart here. Notice it has get the data, which allows people to download the spreadsheet. Has a little ad in here created with Datawrapper. We can add more information to the footer, which we'll do here in a minute. It has a title up here as well. Notice that there are three more tabs up here. So the first thing you'll do in this step is to select the chart type, which you've done here, column chart. Then you're going to refine it. Refining allows you to turn on or off the grid lines. If you don't want those showing across, or the axis labels, we do want to have those on. Okay. The horizontal axis, you can turn the little grid lines off. See how it adds the little pegs there. Okay. You can do it as ticks or by lines. You can do a vertical line through it. I prefer the ticks down here. You can change the color of your column charts. And be careful when you're working with homicide data. I've seen these before. Where people, oh, let's make it red for homicide. A little insensitive. I like kind of this light blue or the dark blue. Either one of those, I think, work fine. And you can use a color picker here to darken it up a little bit if you want to. And give it a little different feel. If you needed a color key on this, really, there's just one category, homicide. So you don't really need this. But for certain type of maps, you do, or for certain types of charts, if you have a group bar chart. Show values, I usually leave on hover on. If it shows always, it kind of crowds it, it's messy. But on hover, because it's an interactive chart, it'll only show the pure number when you hover over that year. And plus you have the grid lines on over here so people can have a good idea of scale over here on the left. Okay. Annotate allows you to add your headline. Chicago homicides by year, and you can build this as we go here. Who published the data? Chicago Police Department. And then I've got a link to the data back on my little class schedule here. Data source is right here. You can downloaded off the City of Chicago's data portal. We did clean this data a little bit using some data from the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times. So we did do a little editing with this. Notice now we've got a link to the source down here. This is good for transparency when building graphics. Your source should always be listed in the footer of your graphic, as well as your byline. So you can drop your name in here, hit return. Now it's giving me chart Mike Riley. If I wanted to highlight a certain year, I could do that. You don't necessarily have to, but I can go through here and select a certain year maybe that I want to highlight. One of the good ones to highlight might be 2016. Okay, and in our description up here, we can always add why that year is highlighted. Chicago's homicide decreased steadily from, I want to say it's 1994. So we saw 20 years of steady decreasing here, going from, 931, pretty steady drop here, and then, it was kind of flat. Before a rash of homicides occurred in 2016. And I could put in more detail in here if I want a couple more sentences. You always want to have a headline and a description. I might say, my headline 1990 to 2020. It's kind of obvious from the scale, but it's good to get it in the headline. And I could add any notations in down at the bottom, of anything, any aberrations in here, anything we noticed, you could mention, maybe in the header here, the Laquan McDonald shooting and, the police chief changing and things like that. It's all relevant. It does have a colorblind checker down here too. This has been a very progressive piece of software. It also shows how it looks in a tablet or in a mobile presentation. Okay. I can add little annotations here. If I wanted to go up here and add a little footnote out of here, I could draw it out of here by clicking on Add Annotation. You just draw across the screen. I could also highlight a range of years. So if I just wanted to highlight 2016 to present, I can hit Highlight Range, go up here, my crosshairs, and paint across. Just highlight this section. Okay, and it takes some practicing to get used to doing the highlighter and things like that. So you see it's kind of wild here because I clicked back in the section, so I can always cancel it, go back and add it in. There we go. Go to layout. You can leave it in English or change it to another language. There's a lot of languages. Again, this is a European company, so they're pretty progressive in sharing this with other languages. Datawrapper. You can choose other templates. Their default Datawrapper graphic template is fantastic. You can't add a watermark or logo. You have to have a paid account for that. Data download. You want people to be able to download your data, so that should always be on. Allow them to download this as an image. People can download the image. Now it added that to the footer over here. The embed link, which is nice. You can embed the graphic now too. Datawrapper with attribution, don't worry about that, but we are going to add the social media share buttons. So that adds the little share buttons up here. People can share your graphic directly to those social channels, and it's very important to have. So data download, image, allow them to download it as a PNG file or a PNG file as we like to call it. Embed link, and then turn on your social sharing buttons. It should default to share site instead of having to manually enter the web address. Now hit proceed. It'll take you to the last step, which is publishing. Okay, this will put it up on the live web. And then I'll show you how to embed it. Okay, embeds quite nicely into Medium. So hit publish now. It'll kick it around here. And there's one step that you have to do here that's kind of tricky. In order to have it show up properly in Medium, you have to check this little button right here, visualization only. Okay, it's a big step that people miss. Hit the copy button, because all you need is a link here. You don't need the embed code. Go to Medium. Go up to Medium, write a story. And I'm going to write Datawrapper practice. Click in the plus sign, go over here to embed, which is the two closed carets. Open and close carets, I should say. Type in the link, hit return, wait patiently, and it'll drop in my graphic. Okay, so make sure that you've gone in and done that. And it'll click off on it as well. It does have the for sharing option as well. I'll show you how it looks a little different. Drops it in that way as well. Okay, so visualization only, grab the link and embed. Okay, once you have it embedded, you can hit the publish button and away you go. Okay, publish now. So people can click on it, then it'll take them to the full chart. And there you have it. Okay, so now you know how to build a basic graphic. Okay, what I want you to do now is to go back to our handout here and open up the Datawrapper assignment. There's a little video tutorial in case you forget any of these steps. Okay, so go ahead and go into our week 5 folder and open up the Datawrapper assignment, which is in this folder, subfolder here at the very top. Okay, Datawrapper assignment is right here. So double click on this, hit pause, and read through this assignment sheet very carefully. Your assignment will be due Monday, February 14th at high noon. All right, welcome back. So your assignment, you're going to build a Datawrapper graphic. I've given you some data sets to work with here. You can go out and find your own if you want to, if you're feeling saucy and want to go out and find your own data set. Just keep in mind that it'd be a little more difficult for me to help you with it, if I'm not familiar with the data. But there's several of them here, attendance for the Chicago Pride Parade and so on and so on. Those can all be found in our folder where it says Datawrapper datasets, and there are a bunch of them in here. You can go through. There's COVID cases. There's a bunch of them even that aren't listed. There are gas prices from 2017, and so on and so on. Pride Parade attendance and so on. So you can go in and select one of these and download them. I can click on Cubs attendance, and boom, download that. It only goes up to 2016. We just looked at those 9 years. You can actually update it, go in and find the last 5 years of attendance, and kind of see how it looked during COVID. Be quite interesting. So you'll build a chart, put a headline, credit, where it came from. I list the sources here, Chicago Brewers Association, and so on. So you'll put a credit in there. And if you can find a link to the raw data, put that in there as well. Post it into Medium, and you're going to write about 200 words with it. And explain to me, a little background on the Pride Parade and why the attendance boomed so much since the 1980s. Where does Illinois rank among all craft brewers with the number of craft brewers in the state? Why did the Cubs attendance suddenly start going up in 2015 and 2016? And so on and so on. I've got other ones here, COVID cases by race from March 1st to June 1st. Right about those early days of the pandemic. There's a lot of missing data from this data set as well. This is a really good one. It's a very scary data set. So pick one of them, build your chart, load it into Medium, and then write your story that accompanies it. And research it. Put in some extra effort on links, to background stories, things like that. I've got some examples at the bottom of the assignment of what people have done in the past. So here are a few of them. This is one that Nicole Soraka did on handgun-related homicide. She went and found her own data set. She just did a simple horizontal bar chart, and did her story with it. Kind of some funky font here now in WordPress. WordPress's templates have changed since she created this about 3 or 4 years ago. This is one looking at Chicago homicides over the years. It's another one by Nicole. This is a simple line chart. She could have done this as a bar chart too. Here's another one that the Fresno Bee did. Hopefully we don't get an ad here. It might kill us. Yep, they put it behind a firewall. Too bad. They had some population charts from the census with it that were pretty good. I've got one in here on sports data too, where there's a lot of, and you're going to create a sports data graphic next week, where it uses quite a few Datawrapper templates. So you've got some examples here to look at. There's several up on redlineproject.org as well. How will your project be evaluated? Did you choose the right chart? If you're struggling with that, reach out to me. I can help you with it a little bit. You'll develop a real good feel by the end of the semester for picking the right chart for something. If you're working with a budget, pie chart's probably a good one. If you're working with some data, that's continuous, stock prices or something like that, or counting attendance, a line chart's probably pretty good. Something like homicide data, bar chart or line chart works pretty well. Did you cite your source, put your credit on the graphic? Was it accurate? Did you write a little description and headline on it? What's missing from it matters. Spelling, grammar, AP style, accuracy. Remember, we did a lot of work with writing with numbers last week. Are you going to put that to good use with your written story? Okay. And did it make it into the Medium post okay? And did you share it and tweet it to the UIC Digital hashtag? It says that up above, but I want to add that into the evaluation as well. Did you tweet a short description, the hashtag, and the link to the UIC Digital hashtag? So again, this is due Monday, February 14th at noon. Make sure you spend a little time on this assignment and do a good job. We do have one more video coming up for week 5 here, where we're going to dig into some more data scraping. We did a little bit of that back in week 3 with the analyzing bridges exercise, but we're going to dig even deeper, and we're going to scrape some PDFs as well. So don't miss that next video.